Welcome. Today we step into a dark chapter of history.
You wake on damp straw in a shed that the innkeeper calls lodging for men like you, not for guests, for those who have a sword, a shield, an old hauberk, and too little silver to argue. Your back aches from the cold. At your side lies a sack with your belongings, a whetstone, spare straps, an extra shirt, a needle, a piece of lard, a knife. Everything you own smells of sweat, smoke, and iron. Behind the wall, the horses of richer men snort in their stalls. They have a lord. You have only debt, rusting steel, and a name that still means something only to you. You were born not in a castle, but in the wooden house of a minor man-at-arms who is too poor to be powerful and too proud to admit how little he matters. Your father calls himself a knight, though his land is only a strip of field, a garden, a few chickens, and the right to collect a little toll on a road that almost nobody uses. He wears a sword, but more often he holds a hoe. Your mother measures grain by the handful and teaches you not to take a second piece unless you are sure tomorrow will bring a first. From childhood, you see the main rule of your world. Armor shines only in songs and tournaments. In real life, it is more often pawned to a moneylender. You grow up fast because childhood in your house is short. In winter, the skin on your fingers cracks from the cold. In summer, your shoulders burn from field work. You haul water, clean the stable, gather brushwood, scrape burned porridge from the pot. When your father takes you into the yard with a wooden sword, it is not a game. He strikes your hands hard enough to make you remember. Drop your guard and you lose fingers. Miss a step and you lose teeth. He speaks of honor, but more often of debt. Of how rich knights have coats of arms, vassals, and the right to make mistakes. You do not. You learn early that noble blood does not feed anyone. When the neighboring baron calls men to campaign, your father rides not from loyalty, but because refusal is impossible. He comes back limping, with a torn thigh, 2 teeth gone, and less than half of what he took with him. He speaks not of glory, but of the stench of camp, of horses collapsing in mud, of men cutting down not the enemy, but the stragglers and baggage handlers, of corpses swelling in the sun faster than a priest can finish a prayer. You sit beside him and understand, knighthood is not a song, it is an expensive way to die. When you are 7, you are sent away as a page to the household of a man above your family in rank. For your family, it is a chance. For you, it is the beginning of service. You sleep near the kitchen, wake before dawn, carry water, clean boots, feed dogs, hold stirrups while older men mount. If you make a mistake, you are beaten not because you are wicked, but because you are low. In the great house, you see real plenty for the first time. White bread, heavy tapestries, silver cups, bright buckles. And for the first time, you understand how far you are from it. You are not part of this world. You are one of its tools. They teach you to read a little, just enough so you are not entirely an animal. They teach you to pray, sit a horse, care for tack, sharpen a blade, fasten a lord's armor before he has time to grow angry. But the main thing they teach you is silence. Do not meet a noble's eyes unless spoken to. Do not eat first. Do not ask where the servants go after being accused of theft. Do not speak of justice when you see the lord's drunken son break a stable boy's nose simply because the boy happened to be there. You absorb it the way clothes absorb smoke. Hierarchy is air. Refuse to breathe it and you choke. As a teenager, you become a squire. Now you have more duties and more pain. You lift saddles that drag your spine toward the ground. You scrub rust from mail until your fingers split into bloody hangnails. You ride behind your lord in small skirmishes that end before bravery has time to matter. For the first time, you see a man's face split open by an axe, not in a song, 3 paces away. The sound is dull and wet. He drops to his knees, clutching his cheek as if he could hold his life in place with his hands. You vomit behind a wagon, and the older squires laugh. A week later, you do not vomit. Your father dies, not in battle, but of fever. His old wound festers, his leg blackens, and the room begins to smell sweet and heavy, like spoiled meat. The priest says suffering cleanses the soul. You watch your father claw at the blanket with shaking hands and understand that suffering cleanses nothing. It only eats a man piece by piece. After he dies, the land passes to another kinsman. The debt stays with your family, and the name falls to you. But a name without land weighs less than a stone. You inherit not an estate, but the duty to survive somehow. You are knighted not at a grand feast, but in haste before another campaign. There is no gilded hall, no crowd of witnesses, only a small chapel, candle smoke, your knees on cold stone, and a sword touching your shoulder. The words sound solemn, but by now you know what words are worth. After the rite, you are given spurs, an old horse, a patched hauberk, and the right to call yourself what richer men are born as. But with that right come expenses. A horse eats oats, iron needs mending, weapons break, men want wages, and you have no fief, no rents, no strong walls to hide behind. You enter your role not as a lord, but as a titled sword for hire. Your life becomes a road between the households of men who can pay. Today you escort a wagon train. Tomorrow you help collect dues from a village where children stare at you the way you once stared at armed strangers. After that, you guard a monastery granary against starving peasants. Then you ride with a petty lord into a dispute over a mill, a stream, or a strip of woodland that both sides call their own. The excuse always sounds noble. The truth is always the same. The stronger man wants more. The daily life of a landless knight is nothing like the legends. You are not always fighting. You wait, haggle, mend gear, count coins, quarrel with the smith who wants payment up front before fixing your helmet. You check hooves, sell a silver buckle to buy oats, sleep in barns, drink sour ale, eat stale bread and salted meat that has to be soaked before it does not break your teeth. Armor rubs your skin raw. In summer, everything beneath the mail is wet. In winter, the metal steel's heat so fast your fingers go numb on the reins. You look fearsome only from a distance. Sometimes you're lucky. At a tournament, you unhorse the overconfident son of a wealthy lord. You win a horse, a ransom, a few weeks of good meals, and the right to think you are moving upward. People smile at you while you have money. More seats open beside you at the tavern table. The merchant who would not extend credit yesterday bows a little lower today. But fortune for a man like you is short. The horse will go lame, the armor will crack, another debt will come due. The world is quick to put a poor man back in his place. You keep learning the real price of service. Barons speak of loyalty, but pay late. Bishops preach mercy, but demand armed guards for carts laden with tithe grain while hunger spreads outside. Counts summon you to council, then seat you below distant cousins so that everyone can see the difference between men with ancestral halls and you, a man whose sword is hired out by his own fate. You are useful when blood is close. When the time comes to divide the spoils, you are remembered last. The first major event breaks into your life in spring, when two lords go to war over inheritance, marriage, and an old insult that no one fully remembers. In the chronicle, it will be called a dispute of rights. For you, it means mud, smoke, and the need to choose the richer side. You join the force of a petty count because he promises land after victory. Not much, not fertile, but your own. That word alone, your own, closes around your throat harder than any prayer. The campaign turns out not to be a campaign, but a slow decay. More men fall sick than fight. Dysentery cuts down squires. One knight's jaw swells until he screams through the night, and a tooth is pulled with iron tongs by the fire. Wagons bog down on the roads, horses collapse, soldiers steal fodder from each other, peasants hide grain in pits, and your men turn over their homes, beat old people, slaughter pigs, smash chests open in search of anything edible. You tell yourself this is war. Then you see a little girl sitting beside the smoking wreck of her home and understand that war is only another name for licensed robbery. Battle comes at dawn by a stream between two hills. Mist hangs low. The ground is soft from rain. You feel cold sweat sliding down your back beneath the mail, though the air bites like ice. At first, there are only shouted orders and the snorting of horses. Then the crack of shafts, the impact of iron, screams that no longer sound like words. You spur forward, your lance trembling in your hand. The collision happens faster than fear. Something slams into you, the air leaves your chest, and the world turns into iron, mud, hooves, and noise. You survive not through valor, but because you fall well. Your helmet saves your skull, your shield saves your side. You scramble up in the churned mess, slipping on grass mixed with blood. In front of you, a young knight in an expensive surcoat struggles to rise, one leg tangled in the stirrup of a dead horse. You strike before he can free his sword. The blade goes under his arm where the armor is weaker. He gasps. He looks at you not like an enemy, but like a man who has just had his world broken. You finish him because otherwise he will finish you. Later, you will take his belt, gloves, and ring. In that moment, you are only shaking. Your side wins the battle. Your thigh is wounded, your horse is gone, but in your hands are a dead man's ransom and a few valuables you can sell. The Count praises the survivors, promises not to forget this service, and even seats you closer to him at table. Not beside him, of course, but closer than before. You eat meat while fat runs down your fingers, and for a little while you almost believe the turn has come. A month later, he actually grants you land, a scrap of it. Stony, poor water, 3 peasant holdings, one already burned half through the previous winter. But it is your first temporary rescue. You stand on the hill, looking over that miserable property, and feel almost free. For several years you live better than before. Not richly, but steadily. You have a place where you do not pay for lodging. You have a barn, though half empty. You have people who owe you labor, though they themselves can barely stand. You mend fences, watch the crew.
Sowing, quarrel with the monastery over a stream, host wandering fighting men you once would have feared as rivals. You even marry the daughter of an impoverished nobleman. She comes to you not with a dowry, but with linen, a chest, and a better understanding of household management than you will ever possess. The house grows warmer, for a time. Then the years come that break everything. First a bad harvest, then another. Rain rots the grain in the field. Disease takes the cattle. After a hard birth, your wife burns with fever and lies drenched in sweat, biting her lip until it bleeds. The infant lives 3 days. You bury him so quickly it feels as though you were hiding your own weakness. Your wife survives, but grows quieter. A hollowness appears in her gaze, one you cannot fill with prayer or touch. At the same time, the Count you serve demands men and money for another war. He does not ask whether you can provide them. He reminds you that you must. You put the armor on again, armor that has grown tighter in the shoulders over the years and heavier on your back. Your body is not what it was. Old wounds ache before rain. Your right hand sometimes goes numb after a hard blow. You ride to serve not because you want to, because losing a fief is easier than keeping one. This war is worse. It has fewer rules and more hungry men with weapons. Villages do not open their gates. Small bands kill messengers on the road. Bodies hang from trees without heraldry, just warnings. Little by little, you understand that the world itself is growing coarser, as though the thin skin of order has been stripped away and there was only flesh beneath it all along. Decline does not come at once. It comes in waves. During the siege of a small castle, a broken assault ladder falls onto your leg and cracks the bone near the ankle. You do not die. That would be simpler. They drag you away, splint it badly, pour wine into you while a surgeon digs into the wound with dirty hands. The leg heals crooked. You can walk again, even ride, but always with pain and a hitch in your step. For a peasant, it would be a misfortune. For a fighting man, it is a sentence postponed. You are no longer first into danger. You are a burden, still called Lord.
At home, things worsen. To pay for equipment and service, you mortgage part of the coming harvest, then more of it. Then you sell the second horse, then your wife's silver cup, a family piece she had guarded since childhood. Peasants flee the land because there is nothing left to eat. One dies on the road in winter. Another is taken in by your neighbor's men with promises of lighter dues. The monastery wins the dispute over the stream. The water is shared on their terms now, and your fields dry sooner. You are still a knight, but now you look more like the keeper of ruins. Your wife coughs more and more, at first dry, then wet and heavy. The bed linens smell of vinegar and illness. You take her to the monastery infirmary, giving up your last good saddle as payment, and listen while the brother physician carefully promises nothing. She dies in autumn, when the leaves already cling to the wet earth. No scream. One morning she simply does not open her eyes. You sit beside her, looking at the face that has become still and strangely unfamiliar, and feel nothing but a blunt exhaustion. Even tears come later, when there is the question of how to pay for prayers for her soul. After her death, the house empties for good. You drink more than before. Servants steal. One slips away in the night with a knife, a sack of grain in your last decent cloak. You try to seek justice from the Count's court, but men like you no longer matter there. You have too
few men, too little money, too little use. The Count's new favorite is young, strong, and tied to wealthy kin. He receives the duties that once came to you. You are only an old sword that has not yet been thrown away. The final event comes in the year when you think things cannot sink any lower. A neighboring lord, who has long watched your scrap of land, declares that your fief rests on disputed rights, and that because of unpaid debts, part of it should pass to him. Law in your world means the man with more armed retainers and better alliances. You try to resist. You send petitions. You ride to the Count, wait 2 days in a damp outer yard, and receive a cold answer. The matter will be considered later. Later means never. When your neighbor's men come to your house, they do not come to talk. 6 mounted men, a dozen on foot, crossbows, axes, torches. You gather your 3 remaining men and bar the gate. It is not a siege, it is a reckoning dragged out over hours. Smoke rises thin at first, then thick. Horses scream in their stalls. An arrow buries itself in your old servant's neck, and he falls clutching the shaft as if it were a hand trying to keep him upright. You hack down at a man climbing the fence and feel the shock of the blow travel up your bad arm into the shoulder. But your strength is not what it was, and there are too many of them. The fire reaches the roof. Heat drives you into the yard. Boards crack overhead. Smoke saws at your eyes until tears run whether you want them or not. You limp, stumble, and still raise your sword one more time, though by then you understand that the end will not be heroic. There will be no final knightly duel. One of the footmen smashes a pole into the back of your knee. You drop. Another stamps on your hand, and your fingers open on their own. Someone laughs. Someone says the old man is still alive. They do not kill you at once, because humiliation is more satisfying than a clean death. They take you not into honorable captivity, but to a wet tower on your neighbor's land. It smells of piss, mildew, and old fear. The chain scrapes your ankle raw. Nobody dresses the wound on your head. You sit in the dark, counting the drops falling from the ceiling, and understand that this is what the end of a man looks like when he has spent his life gripping a title like a bridge over a pit. No one owes your ransom. There is no one to pay it. The Count is silent. Your kin are too poor. Your neighbor wants only one thing from you, a signed acknowledgement that your rights are forfeited. After several days, when your fingers barely obey from cold, you make your mark where they tell you. After that, you are useless. They release you not to freedom, but simply outside. No horse, no land, no house. A coarse wool cloak and a few coins, mercy enough that you do not die under their gate. You drag yourself along the road, leaning on a stick, looking more like a pilgrim or a beggar veteran than a knight. People look through you. The title is still yours, but without retainers, without a shield above a gate, without iron on your shoulders, it sounds like mockery. You die in winter in a monastery shelter for poor travelers. Not in battle, not on horseback, not beneath a banner. A fever, coughing, and old wounds that finally add up. Before death, you hear a man moaning in his sleep somewhere nearby, wind slipping through the cracks, the brother monk turning a page in his prayer book. Everything is quiet, almost ordinary. Your body is buried in common ground by the wall because there is no money for a grave of your own.
No stone bearing your arms is raised above you. By spring, the place is grass, and no one can say exactly where you lie. Your memory vanishes quickly, too. The neighbor takes the fief. What remains of your house is pulled apart for boards and firewood. The peasants pass to a new master, and within a year remember you only as a hard, poor, doomed man. Chronicles record counts, bishops, tournament victors. Men like you remain in debt rolls, boundary disputes, and an occasional note by a priest, buried one night. That is the whole of your immortality. The summary of your life is short and brutal, about 50 years, nearly 40 of them under the will of stronger men. One small fief, lost almost as soon as it was gained. One marriage. One child who did not survive a week. At least 3 serious wounds. Dozens of petty clashes. One true victory, paid for with the rest of your life. What did you gain? A title? A sword? A few years of the illusion that you could rise. What did you lose? Your father? Your wife? Your child? Your health? Your land? Your home? Your name? And even the right to die with dignity. You wanted honor, but in a world like this, honor belongs to those who have walls, grain, and allies. You wanted land. Land demands blood, money, and men, and you never had enough of any of them. You wanted freedom, but a landless knight is not free. He is only a better armed debtor in service to wealthier debtors. That is the central truth of your life. Power loves to speak of loyalty, but respects only strength. And survival is almost never a reward for virtue. It is only a delay before the next blow. If you want to live another life like this one, without the shine of myth, only the true price of power, war, and survival, choose the next role. Legends end quickly here. Mud does not.
If you want more dark history, watch the next video.